Good morning, everybody. Ambassador, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming along, and thank you very much for the kind invitation, Ambassador. Who knew that there would be such an interest in modern device physics? Which I promise I won't bore you with. I think my real brief is to be so boring about a company like Intel that the rest of the presenters look really good, and so we'll see how we go. I just get a handle on the technology here. I want to tell you a story of creativity from an Intel perspective, perhaps from a lot of you that perhaps might regard it as an unlikely source. So go with me for a minute back 50 years in time, and obviously not many of you can remember quite back that far, but top left-hand picture there is a fellow called James Russell. Anybody know what he invented? He invented the compact disc. I was telling somebody recently that I said to my son I was chastening him for being bold, and I said, honestly, you sound like a cracked record. And he said to me, what's that? So I thought I was being clever, and I said, well, actually, you sound like a CD that's stuck. And he goes, what's that? So it's hard to keep advanced. But James Russell, 50 years ago, invented the compact disc. The picture in the middle, J.K. Rowling was born. I think you'll agree as you see these pictures roll out that the creativity that we now all regard has had huge economic impact. Top right-hand picture, the Beatles. They're playing their the first ever world stadium tour, I believe, which was in O'Shea Stadium. Bottom left-hand picture, the iconic Sound of Music was released. I'll skip Mr. Moore. Over on the right-hand side, a gentleman called John Monaghan, who is president of his own biotech company, Avigen. This picture is him winning the first ever Young Scientist exhibition held in Dublin 50 years ago. And the gentleman in the middle on the bottom is somebody that we know very well at Intel. His name is Gordon Moore. And coincidentally, we are this week celebrating the 50th anniversary of a prediction that he made 50 years ago. That's him on the bottom left there, having a thought. He wrote this paper in the Journal of Electronics Journal, and he predicted that the number of transistors incorporated in a chip would approximately double every 2 years. Sounds a little innocuous, but think of your own business model, and here's a translation for you. What business can you think of whose core reason for existence is to have the cost of what you do every 2 years? Double the output for the same price. Now, the bottom right-hand images, in the era of rotary telephones, and that looks to me, Ambassador, like one of those timber-based sedans that we had. In that era, that prediction itself was just that. But in that same paper, he actually also predicted the advance of electronics into automotive. He had predicted the advance into mobile communications, and he even predicted the digital watch. And he also predicted mobile PCs and communications. But what I'd like to focus on is the thing that he was talking about was the transistor. And the transistor are, to me, they are marvels of modern technology. These things are the foot soldiers that we manufacture by the billions that'll make the cell phone in your pocket work, make your computer at home and the servers and all of the things we've come to take for granted. Makes them all work. It operates all the software that we use. But I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about what Moore's Law has meant for those transistors. In 1965, you could place a handful of these into your hand. And we've had to work to make them smaller and smaller, because the way you double the performance for the same price is you make them smaller and smaller. You make them consume less power. You're able to stack them closer and closer together. All the way up to modern day, the size of a transistor now, and if I could get you to imagine this for a second, plucking a hair from your head and dividing it by 6,000 times. Just how tiny these transistors are, and you can by definition imagine just how easy it is to cram so many of those together to make a functional device, something that's going to be, are you getting the idea of this? Simply an electronic switch. It's minute in size, you can't even see it. They're turning on and off all the time, and it's those engines that are powering all the software that we interact with. You got it? With me so far? That's as hard as it gets, relax. But the world consumes an awful lot of those. I mean, it's hard to it is hard to communicate to a broad audience just how important these things are. But if I said to you that in 2014 there was 8 trillion of these manufactured every second of the entire year, I think you get an idea of the impact on that. So the impact of that, the question is the power over the economic value of a creative mind. The impact of those transistors and what we've been able to do with them is incredible right across the scale. Perhaps on the economic front, it's a bit more obvious. We take e-commerce and our ability to communicate across continents instantaneously for granted almost. But what the transistor doubling its performance for the same price every 2 years really did was it made mass computing and high performance computing available and affordable to everybody. We know that once the kids got their hands on those kinds of things, look what they were able to do with them, what the 50 years has meant. And of course we do use them in high performance applications such as weather prediction or cures for diseases or for other such very large projects such as the human genome. But on the right hand side, the technological advances have been amazing. You might be thinking to yourself, okay, I could maybe figure out a way to manufacture these devices so small, to cut a hair on my head 6,000 or 7,000 times in dimension. And you might actually still be laboring under the fact that it's, I'm sure some smart people together can do that, but I want to put it into context for you. It's the sheer force of will of people, and let's apply that same rate of progression to other industries. You might be familiar with some of them. But if we were to make, say, take a modern cell phone that you have in your pocket today, if we were to make it using 1971 technologies, the processor that runs that phone in your pocket today would take up the same size as a car parking space. So it'd make it a little awkward to transport. Fuel efficiency. If the fuel efficiency progressed at the same rate as Moore's Law, you could easily drive a car for your entire life on a single tank of gas. By the way, can I just ask, anybody impressed? It's really hard to tell. But if house prices fell at the same rate, you could purchase a home for the price of a piece of candy. And my favorite, trip to the moon took 3 days in 1969. Today it would take just a minute. So you can really see that it's a remarkable law and a remarkable prediction, and something that was incredible. Power of a creative mind 50 years ago that made such an audacious thing. But here's the kicker. It's not really a law at all. We start, this is a quote from our chairman, Andy Bryant, and the truth is that we start with one of the most abundant materials available on the planet, with sand. And we end up with the most complicated electronic devices that are known to man. All that is in between that is the creativity, the determination, the ingenuity of the people that we have. And so I think that in itself sort of says to you, I could probably run out of zeros in trying to calculate the economic impact, the societal impact, and the technological impact that Moore's Law has driven. But I think you'll all agree that when you reflect on it, that it's been people that have taken on that mantra from where he started in 50 years ago, makes that a remarkable achievement in itself. So economic impact, let's get a little selfish about it and talk about it here in Ireland. We are getting ready to manufacture the latest iteration of Moore's Law transistors right here in Ireland. Just a few kilometres from here, out in Leakslip. There's an aerial shot of the facility. The ambassador mentioned last year we celebrated 25 years of operations in Ireland. The products that we'll manufacture there will be just among just 2 or 3 such places that these will be made, and we'll service an entire worldwide market for these things. And we commissioned an independent economic impact report last year about the importance of Intel to the Irish economy, and one headline piece of news from that is that on average every year for the last 25, the economic value of Intel in Ireland has been of the order of €900 million every year on average for the last 25. So I think by any yardstick you'll agree it's a huge capital investment and a huge economic impact, and as the ambassador said, powered by the creativity of people from both sides of the Atlantic. And of course, from that base of investment and that intensity of people, we were able to extend out the value chain and do other things. Obviously, the manufacture of the microprocessor itself is a demanding task, but we've been able to extend our footprint in Ireland. Excuse me, we have offices now in Dublin, I don't know if you can quite see the pictures quite sense, but we've collaborations with Dublin City on smart sensing. We have a graphics engine company, a Trinity College spin out that do graphics for high performance computing, gaming basically to make it look realistic when you're shooting things on the computer games. We have our McAfee acquisition down at Cork, but we also, I see Kieran Drain here, we were active collaborators in research on nanotechnologies with the Tyndall Institute down at Cork, as well as with CRAN here in Dublin. And we also have offices in Shannon where we're developing technologies for automotive and for retail use. So you can see that it has really expanded considerably beyond just leak slip and beyond just the economic impact of manufacturing here. And a story that many of you may have heard about, but it's one that we're particularly proud of in the last couple of years, something that we've been able to accomplish. Intel is a large company, 100,000 people or so worldwide. 30 so of those 1,000 people are involved in manufacturing. But an equal number are involved in the design of microprocessors. And what's remarkable is that up until we got our hands on this opportunity, there was really 3 product lines for Intel. You could buy chips for servers, Xeons, you could buy chips for PCs and laptops, the Core, and you could buy chips for mobile devices. We came along and produced this product family called Quark. And that has enabled a real launch by Intel worldwide into the Internet of Things. We designed the Quark processor in leak slip, and we launched it with some fanfare, producing it on the Galileo board. I'm pretty certain you won't be able to see from where you're sitting, but emblazoned on that board is proudly designed in Ireland. And I was sharing with the ambassador that it's also proudly manufactured in New Mexico in the US. So this great collaboration between us to produce the Quark and the Galileo. And we've gone on from that now, and we've produced just a couple of months ago, we produced the latest and designed the latest version of this called Curie. You can see it there sitting in the center of a Polo Mint. And it is the first system on a chip that has been designed exclusively for wearable devices. So watch this space. I think the next 50 years is every bit as exciting as the last 50 years was. So almost in conclusion, the ambassador mentioned that I'm also the president of the American Chamber of Commerce this year, proudly representing all of the hard work, innovation, creativity that many, many Irish people do right across the spectrums from manufacturing, software, biomed, biopharm, financial services, etc. It's an incredible, talented group of people. And what we recognize carefully are represented in our policy priorities for 2015, that it's really important that we understand that we have the skills, the talent, and the innovation. Because without those things, we don't have the very lifeblood of what generates companies like Intel and allows us to have the sort of impact that we all enjoy. The colleges that we have need to be producing the best skilled, capable people that we can. Think about it, 50 years ago, we had no idea what we would be asking people, the sorts of problems that we would ask them to address today. So we've got to teach them the core skills to do that. They've got to be exposed to opportunities and collaborative environments that they would never imagine might be happening just a short few years ago. And innovation, of course, is hugely relevant because despite our success, we still spend about half of our own ambition of our GDP on research, development, and innovation. It's currently about 1.5% of GDP. Many of our European counterparts spend twice that, more than that, as they do in the US. So our policy agenda is to drive those 3 areas of skills, talent, and innovation as much as we can, because we do understand, as the ambassadors alluded to, it is the people and their creativity, their ingenuity, and their simple determination to be successful, which is what continues to drive companies like ours. So in conclusion, folks, I think Intel is perhaps the most tangible example I know of the power of creative mind to create business value. It is a core business value for Intel, and we must remember that even though that Gordon Moore was the one that started it 50 years ago, it was the successive generations of people that actually kept it alive and have kept it as vibrant as it is, and will keep it going for the next 50. Thank you very much.